Thank you so much, you two. Yes, I am so excited to be sitting here next to the GOAT, Aaron, the first person I ever got to cast with for VGC as well. So this is a fun throwback. How are you feeling about today so far? Because there has been some cheeky things out in the field.
There are a lot of cool Pokemon, first of all. Also honored to be here with you, Sierra. We cast during the online era in Players Cup, so it's surreal to be in person together at an event after many, many years. But yeah, I think a lot of the top tables,
Ready to head into our first game of this round. Garchomp and Didi is going to be the appearances over on Ian's end, going up against the Roaring Moon and Iron Hands.
Yeah, so Garchomp and Indeedee. Garchomp kind of a classic Pokemon from the older days of VGC and making a resurgence here. This is a Swords Dance set. So it's Swords Dance, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and it's also got that clear amulet as we see the Photosynthesis activate, giving the Roaring Moon attack boost here. And so with this lead, you can't fake out thanks to the Psychic Terrain. Indeedee can immediately redirect super effective attacks away with the Follow Me. Garchomp can consider just going for a Swords Dance immediately here, or just go for a Dragon Claw / Earthquake, but I actually think this is a decently safe position to go for Swords Dance.
And right away on the first turn of this battle, we are going to see a Terrestrialization come out. It'll be that Roaring Moon into the Flying Terra type at this point. What's interesting to a lot of Roaring Moons, they do have the Tailwind to maybe set the whole team up, whereas this one, like the Garchomp, is one that's going to be setting itself up for success. Indeedee, with that Follow Me to keep the Garchomp nice and safe going into this turn, as it is go ahead and go for that Swords Dance. This is going to be a +2 to its attack stats, deal some massive damage into the next turn. Acrobatics, this will hit into the Indeedee, and that's also going to be a hefty amount of damage. And with the Volt Switch, it won't be quite enough for the KO, but at least a free position from Luca.
Yeah, one really big thing to call out there is the Garchomp was actually faster than the Roaring Moon, and so both of these Pokemon can be trained a lot of different ways. Sometimes players just go for max attack, max speed investment. This is not the case here. So Swords Dance is nice, but I think the amount of damage onto Indeedee is definitely worth it. And the thing with Garchomp now is, okay, you've got Dragon Claw and Earthquake. Earthquake won't hit the Roaring Moon, and with the Flying Terra, Dragon Claw might not necessarily even KO with no speed investment or little speed investment on Roaring Moon. Expect it to be very bulky, and you can kind of tell that by its HP stat as well. So Luca's actually in a really good offensive position right now, and maybe Ian can pressure one of the two Pokemon for a KO, but the idea behind protecting here is to maybe get a free switching, because Indeedee is just not providing any value right now.
Yeah, and Indeedee, just knowing that Follow Me, I'm going to take every hit. I'm going to allow the free pivot out, so there could be something a little bit more helpful to my Garchomp. Dazzling Gleam. Garchomp definitely wasn't going to be appreciating that, and of course, since it's its spread damage attack, Indeedee was never going to be able to protect it anyways.
Exactly, and so yeah, the idea here, as the Dragon Dance comes out, we saw that locked in, but what a beautiful time to go for it. Kind of capitalizing off the fact that, Garchomp here, even at the +2, might not necessarily get the knockout onto Roaring Moon, and maybe you click Earthquake. Drifloon actually hits the field though. Now this Drifloon, of course, has access to both Tailwind and Haze, and it gets Hypnosis, and so, yeah, I was talking about Tyranitar Lycanroc going into this matchup, but we actually see the Drifloon, and normally you would expect Indeedee and Drifloon to be led next to each other, but I love the sacrifice to get the free switch into Drifloon. So now I'm really curious about the speed interactions between, Drifloon as well as the Fluttermane and the Roaring Moon here. As Garchomp goes for a Terra, this is kind of both offensive and defensively. Now you're not weak to that Dazzling Gleam from the opposing end.
Make sure they have a little bit more longevity going into this, especially. You want to be making the most use possible out of that +2 attack, but being able to go first with the help of this Tailwind is definitely going to be huge. Dragon Claw into the Roaring Moon, not enough for a KO though, and now Roaring Moon can retaliate. It will be the Acrobatics, and that will take this Garchomp down.
Yeah, the Tailwind is nice to allow Garchomp to outspeed, and if you actually get that knockout, it is a game-defining turn, but this Roaring Moon is so bulky, survives the +2 Dragon Claw. Dazzling Gleam does so much damage to Drifloon as well, so Ian at least has set up some speed control, and Goldengo actually a really fantastic Pokemon to have here as the final one. But now the question is, you have to deal with all 4 Pokemon on the opposing end, and the Roaring Moon has a speed boost. There's the Assault Vest on the Iron Hands in the back as well, and you can slowly stall out Tailwind as well. So I mean, this is Nasty Plot Goldengo, so if there's any Pokemon that can potentially pull off a comeback right now, I could see it being that. But I think Ian has a really big uphill battle right now, as Luca is just in such a commanding position with the amount of pure damage that he has with this Pokemon.
I mean, at least the Goldengo is paired up next to a Haze, so can even just try and go for some damage right away. Because, I mean, we've seen some crazy games with Goldengo back in even just Series 1 and Series 2, so the Pokemon can definitely do some damage, but instead, Acrobatics, that's going to hit into the Roaring Moon this time around and at least get rid of one powerful Paradox.
Yeah, I think the main thing here from Luca's end is he knows that Ian's Golden Go has the nasty plot, so great job here kind of covering for it. I think like one way that Ian could lose this game, or sorry, Luca could lose this game, is if you kind of keep switching out and playing a little bit defensive, but actually fails to get the knockout onto Drifloon, and so that will enable Drifloon to potentially get another attack off the Golden Go here, of course, getting to +2 special attack as well. So I think the idea is if you get the knockout there onto the Drifloon, it's a 3v1, it's really difficult for Golden Go to come back from, you know, that position. Golden Go still has an uphill battle here because like both Iron Hands and the Arcanine on Ian's or on Luca's end resist Make It Rain, right? And so Golden Go is slowly getting chipped away as well. And so I'd say the position still very, very heavily favors Luca, but yeah, both players I think making kind of the best possible play that last turn. If the Golden Go went for a Make It Rain, you knock out Flutter Mane, but then it's 2 free switch-ins in the Iron Hands and the Arcanine. Oh, Hypnosis though!
Not gonna land. The accuracy on that one, not the greatest whatsoever, but you gotta go for what you can. Make It Rain will be taking the KO on the Flutter Mane. The Iron Hands, though, is gonna take that quite well.
Yeah, I will say, actually, with Hypnosis, like, I think Ian maybe had a better chance of getting back into this game than I initially gave credit for, because if you actually manage to, you know, put everything to sleep and your opponent eats, like, max sleep turns, the Golden Go can continue nasty plotting up, but I think, you know, it would rely on not only hitting multiple Hypnosises, but you'd also have to hope for multiple, you know, sleep rolls. And kind of the downside when you're so fast with Drifloon is, yeah, even if that Hypnosis connects, the Pokemon kind of burns the sleep turn immediately, and so can potentially just wake up immediately the next turn. But now it's Arcanine with the Iron Hands coming back out, and, you know, you can just go for a pretty simple double up, and yeah, that should be game. So, you know, I think in this one, one of the key defining turns was basically the Roaring Moon actually surviving that +2 Dragon Claw. I think that's a really big damage calc, and I was expecting Tyranitar and Lycanroc to come out in this first game. Did not make an appearance at all, so I'm curious if Ian thinks about adjusting into that going into game 2.
Yeah, especially since this looks pretty locked up. The Shadow Ball attempt, that is just going to be the protect from the Arcanine that's hitting into. And now Wild Charge hitting into the Golden Go. That will be enough to take this KO and make it so Luca can take game 1 here. And I am intrigued with how this adjustment will be, because the fact that there is a couple of different modes on Ian's end to be able to go for, now you know this one mode, not necessarily it, at least not in this scenario. And now that you have that information with what Luca wants to be bringing out and seeing that, hey, this Lycanroc, this Tyranitar could actually be pretty nice into it. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think it's funny, you know, going into this match, we were kind of talking about Palafin, Tyranitar, Lycanroc. Not a single one of those Pokemon actually were brought to that last battle, but I think it speaks to the strength of both players' teams where you have the flexibility to bring them. I think from Luca's end, even though Palafin looks really strong in Ian's entire team, I can understand why he might not feel as confident bringing it, mainly because, one, you have to deal with the NDD with Psychic Terrain on the opposing side, so that can block your priority Jet Punches, and then you're relying really on Wave Crash, and Wave Crash can be powerful, but the Palafin might be slower than a lot of Pokemon on the opposing end. So yeah, I think Luca having this ultra bulky Roaring Moon, the way he like positioned it, the way he Terra'd immediately and also got Dragon Dance off was amazing. So he made it look like such a strong Pokemon choice here. And so from Ian's end, okay, well now you know the kind of investment on Roaring Moon, right? You can deduce that, okay, it's slower than my Garchomp, but also survived that +2 Dragon Claw, so it must be a really, really bulky set. And as a result, you can also kind of take a look and say, oh, you know what? This Roaring Moon has Acrobatics, Throat Chop, Protect, and Dragon Dance, and so Tyranitar actually doesn't really take that much damage from Acrobatics or Throat Chop. So that's the adjustment I think that could make a lot of sense from Ian's end here.
And those are the things that you have to really be able to scope out with actually just playing through the game. Because, yeah, in this open team sheet format, a lot of things out there will not necessarily be a surprise, but what is necessarily going to be living or making it through the next turn,
exactly,
where the speeds are, that is still information that the players don't have to have public whatsoever. So definitely a lot of room for changes. No change over on Ian's end, though, to start the Indeedee and Garchomp making an appearance once again facing off against the Roaring Moon and Flutter Mane.
Yeah, so this time we see the adjustment into Flutter Mane, which I think is really smart on Luca's end. You know, the thing with the Iron Hands in that previous game was that you can't click Fake Out when the Psychic Terrain is set up. And so this is just a super hyper offensive lead here from Luca. A lot of damage pressure immediately, and we saw that Acrobatics almost just got that one-hit knockout onto Indeedee previously, and so yeah, like, it's pretty safe to just go for Acrobatics and Dazzling Gleam. I think one decision you do have to make here is, do you want to maybe double up onto the Garchomp slot? If so, Garchomp could protect, Indeedee could set up Trick Room. Trick Room wasn't something that we talked about previously, but the Indeedee on Ian's end does have it, and so you have to be a little bit wary in case of Trick Room going up and say like Tyranitar is in the back, for example. Then things can get kind of scary pretty quickly, but at the end, right now, Luca is applying a lot of offensive pressure, and I'm also curious if an Earthquake from Garchomp can just knock out the Flutter Mane, but I wouldn't expect it to.
Especially with the first turn terrestrialization once again, but instead it will be into the Garchomp this time. So maybe looking to just be going for some damage or making sure that there could be survivability past the Dazzling Gleam going into this first turn, as you're definitely not going to appreciate a Dazzling Gleam coming out from the Flutter Mane whatsoever. Follow me to at least make sure the Garchomp will be safe from a hit from... the critical hit! That hurt so much. Sure, the Swords Dance came out. You're going to be able to make it through to the next turn. Indeedee is now gone.
Yeah, that's a big crit. You know, even without the crit, though, Garchomp still would have taken so much damage. I think the general idea here is to, you know, boost up Garchomp, bring out the Drifloon like previously as it comes out, and maybe just go for a Tailwind. But yeah, you're kind of stuck in the same position as previously, right? But now you've committed your Terra as well, and with Garchomp eating up so much damage, like Dazzling Gleam was going to be a 2-hit knockout onto the Garchomp anyway, right? So right now Drifloon can go for a target onto one of the two Pokemon, but you know, once again, the same problem of Roaring Moon just being able to tank that +2 Dragon Claw still lies here, right? And so both Roaring Moon and Flutter Mane can obviously easily knock out Garchomp. I think the upside is at least like Garchomp here can, you know, go for maybe Protect as maybe you start trying to, you know, fire those Hypnosises off with Drifloon, but of course Hypnosis is a really inconsistent strategy. That being said, I think Ian just lost so much on turn 1 that he might already have to be forced to use it here.
Yeah, try and play to whatever out that you can be to try and put yourself back in at least an even position into this game. It'll be a terrestrialization over onto the Roaring Moon for the second turn of this battle going into that flying type. Of course, as Drifloon is going to set up the Tailwind. No Protect coming out, so this Garchomp going to be going on to the offensive. That'll be the Earthquake. At this point, doesn't affect the Drifloon, not going to affect the Roaring Moon. It's just going to be damage onto this Flutter Mane. It's +2, so that is going to be a one-hit KO.
Yeah, so Flutter Mane goes down, and the Roaring Moon here, of course, will get the Throw Chop off into the Drifloon slot. Actually just picks up the one-hit knockout there. However, the thing is, like, Garchomp actually did survive the turn, right? I think Ian kind of making a bold call there. That being said, there is the Amoonguss as a switch in here potentially. I think the tough thing for Garchomp right now is that, like, you can Dragon Claw, you can Earthquake, but, you know, Ian's got his own Golden Go out right now, so if you click Earthquake, you're forced to Protect with the Golden Go, right? So more likely you'd want to consider something like a Dragon Claw and maybe a Nasty Plot or a Make It Rain. Roaring Moon is just so offensively good into the 4 Pokemon that Ian has selected in this battle, and so right now Luca going for kind of a defensive play to stall at a turn of Tailwind. Ian could potentially capitalize off this if he's feeling a little cheeky and go for a Swords Dance with Garchomp and a Nasty Plot with Golden Go. Now that would be, you know, a really kind of what feels like a risky play, but given that Ian's position, like, he might feel like he's a little behind in this battle right now, I could actually see him go for it. I think amazing call by Ian there to just straight up go for the Earthquake that previous turn rather than saying, okay, I'm going to Protect and Hypnosis. I think Protect Hypnosis was the play I was talking about, and I think that, you know, it's risky there because if you lose Garchomp, I feel like the game is just so difficult there, but there's the Protect coming out from Garchomp this time around.
Yeah, making sure that you could stay safe as the Golden Go potentially can go for a setup. The Roaring Moon, though, also the Protect, wanting to make sure that this Roaring Moon that's already put in all the damage, another Protect. So hey, if this is a Nasty Plot, then this is just going to be pure profit over on Ian's end. Let's go. That is the freest Nasty Plot I've ever seen.
Yeah, that is the perfect time to go for it. Capitalizes off Luca playing a little bit passively. So now, you know, you do have that +2 Make It Rain. Garchomp, of course, has that Dragon Claw or Earthquake. But what makes this awkward is I think if you're on Ian's end, you probably want to just apply maximum offensive pressure. So it's Dragon Claw. No Rage Powder coming out there. Goes into the Amoonguss slot. So that could have been potentially onto the Roaring Moon. Now my question is, does a +2 Make It Rain get the knockout onto Roaring Moon? We know it's bulky, and it gets the KO!
Double KO from this Golden Go. And Nasty Plot doing the most work. That's incredible.
Oh my goodness. The amount of pure damage output that Ian has when you get these boosts off is absolutely incredible. And I think here what was awkward is having this Iron Hands in the back, right? With Iron Hands, with Psychic Terrain up, there's just really nothing that you can do with it. And so I think the pivotal turn in this battle, there were 2 pivotal turns. It was when Drifloon ended up setting up Tailwind and Garchomp just straight up went for the Earthquake, and then the subsequent turn when we saw the Protect into a Nasty Plot. So Ian getting 2 turns back to back basically perfectly. Garchomp just going for the Protect as you Shadow Ball now, and then the next turn you can just Protect Golden Go Earthquake, and Ian will take us to a Game 3 here.
What incredible comeback in this match coming out from Ian. Close combat into the Garchomp, protected, of course. But I mean, just considering that there is the same way that he played it out, no Pokemon swaps. We were talking about, hey, maybe the Tyranitar, maybe the Lycanroc. No, sticking with the same 4. And it was the 4 that were able to make it happen this time around. I'm so intrigued with how Game 3 is going to shake up now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because Ian's shown that he's willing to just stick with the same 4 Pokemon, right? So no adjustment into Tyranitar, Lycanroc. Now I'm curious on Luca's end because essentially it felt like the Iron Hands contributed nothing to that battle. So do you ever consider dropping it basically if you're expecting Ian to go with the same 4 Pokemon? Now the downside is if you drop Iron Hands and Ian does go with Tyranitar and Lycanroc, you give up one of, if not your best tool into that combination. So Luca might feel forced to just bring Iron Hands again. I think Luca can look back at that game and be like, wow, I had a huge turn 1 lead, but in the end, like Ian got 2 turns back-to-back fully correctly. For example, if Luca had just gone for the Throat Chop onto the Golden Go, you know, the turn that it went for that nasty plot, I think Luca could have easily won that one, right? And so, yeah, I think that's one thing to consider. I think I was talking about kind of Amoonguss going into this best of 3, and Amoonguss is interesting because with a good defensive Terra, you can put things to sleep. However, I can now also understand why Ian's prioritizing the Indeedee so much. Indeedee on Ian's team actually has safety goggles, and so the idea here is Ian might recognize, oh my gosh, Amoonguss can spore things pretty easily because I can't actually guarantee a knockout even if I double up onto that slot. But if I bring Indeedee, then I can at least like kind of stop it from putting on pressure against me early. And so, yeah, I'm really curious if Ian just goes with the same 4 Pokemon again because it felt like he was kind of behind in the early game in both of the matches, but he played phenomenally in back-to-back turns to kind of secure that last game.
And I'm intrigued with on Luca's end as well because a couple of the Pokemon that really could be making that big impact, just not really given the chance to in pivotal turns of the battle. I mean, the Amoonguss just went down. The Iron Hands hasn't really done much at all. But going into this Game 3, yet again, the Garchomp that could with the Indeedee, and it'll be Roaring Moon next to the Amoonguss to lead.
So this is interesting because the Indeedee on the opposing side does not have Protect. It's also a flying Terra type, and so, you are pretty vulnerable to just taking a lot of damage immediately. We saw earlier, though, that it can survive that +1 acrobatics, right? So, yeah, Throat Chop and Spore here I think is a really smart play. If you're Ian, you could theoretically go for a defensive Terra here with the Indeedee. It is flying Terra, but, that will get rid of the super effective damage from Throat Chop. So you could flying Terra, go for that Follow Me to bypass that Spore, and then go for a Swords Dance with Garchomp. It's clear like Ian really prioritizes getting up Swords Dance up with Garchomp, and so that's one play to consider because I think the alternative is if you don't do that, then Throat Chop just KOs your Indeedee, and then Spore can just go into the Garchomp, and that's kind of a disastrous turn 1, right? So I think Ian here might want to consider going for a defensive Terra plus Follow Me here, but we'll see how it plays out.
Especially, too, having something on the Garchomp like the Terra type was so nice, but you do have to be bringing out the defensive Terra types when necessary. But swapping into the Golden Go, Garchomp not going for that first turn Sword Dance this time around.
Yeah, I really like that. I think by switching in, the Golden Go is immune to the Spore thanks to its ability, and there is the defensive Terra from the Indeedee as well. Now, this is so interesting because Ian may have found a position to get multiple nasty plots off with the Golden Go. I wonder if he's actually going to go for Trick Room as well on the Indeedee, as Throat Chop does not manage to secure the knockout there, but it's just Psychic.
Just looking to go on the defensive a little bit into this Amoonguss. Super effective hit, but the Amoonguss takes that so well, as of course, Spore not going to do anything, good as gold.
Yeah, and so, I think this was a lead that gave Luca an advantage, and Ian played well on turn 1 to get out of what was, I think, a really bad position. If he makes the wrong play there, right, and lets the Garchomp just get put to sleep, it's a disaster. And so Ian has properly positioned Golden Go, but this time around, he doesn't have, like, an immediate nasty plot or an immediate Swords Dance, right? So it's going to take a little bit of time to actually get going, and Roaring Moon applies so much offensive pressure against both of these Pokemon right now. And so even though Ian's, I think, in a better spot than he was maybe coming into this battle, Golden Go doesn't exactly apply that much offensive pressure right now, and Roaring Moon is so strong to both of these Pokemon.
And at this point, it'll be the Amoonguss swapping out and the Arcanine coming in its place. A Pokemon that definitely can be putting pressure onto this Golden Go as well in turns coming up. Follow Me from Indeedee just to make sure the partner Pokemon can be making it through to the next round, as it does want to be looking for that setup move, that nasty plot that put in all the impact the time before. Throat Chop into Indeedee, that is going to be enough to be picking up that KO and force Ian to be bringing in a new Pokemon.
Yeah, there was the ability to potentially Dragon Dance if you're Luca, but I think Luca really wants to respect the Trick Room option on Indeedee, which is totally fair, and so might as well just get the guaranteed knockout, get rid of the redirection user, and, Arcanine into the Golden Go pressures very heavily with Flare Blitz. We saw this being a critical part of Wolf Glick's regional championship winning team in Orlando, where realized with enough investment, Flare Blitz can just get a one-hit KO onto so many common Golden Goes. And so Drifloon comes out. Now the Drifloon will be able to potentially go for a Tailwind or a Hypnosis. Tailwind is kind of like the safer option, but if you Tailwind, the question is, can you actually knock out the Arcanine? Because if not, then you might just feint to a Flare Blitz in return, right? And so we saw earlier how strong that +2 Make It Rain is into Roaring Moon, but Roaring Moon here, of course, could protect, could also just consider switching out. And the idea behind Throat Chop here is if Drifloon really tries to go all in, maybe you read the Roaring Moon Protect, you consider Hypnosis plus Shadow Ball into the Arcanine slot, and Roaring Moon Throat Chop could theoretically just, knock out the Golden Goal here. But the question is, do you expect Ian to, make a kind of cheeky prediction here?
The Hypnosis, though, is so risky at any point because you maybe go for it. At this point, though, the Golden Goat with the Protect. And this could be the opportunity for the Drifloon to really protect something up. Arcanine also protecting over on Luca's end. Now it will be the Tailwind, so the Golden Go is going to stay safe. So both of these Pokemon can try and be pressuring over in the next turn. Make sure that you have that speed. And considering the Throat Chop did hit into Golden Go slot, that is just going to be all profit for Ian. Yeah,
that's a huge, huge turn. I think Luca was trying to kind of go all in that turn. And now, if you're Ian, you can just go for Hypnosis onto the Arcanine slot and just click Make It Rain with Golden Go. It's generally safe. Of course, you can try to hope for a, maybe a miss with the Hypnosis, maybe Make It Rain is actually a damage roll on the Roaring Moon as well, because if Roaring Moon survives and you actually get this knockout onto the Golden Go, it's a really big deal. But Hypnosis does not actually come out, it's just Acrobatics, and that actually does so much damage. Yeah, Make It Rain might just get the double knockout here. Oh, it survived! Both Pokemon survive!
Neither Pokemon going to go down in this position, and that is a huge loss here on Ian's end. Throat Chop is going to handedly deal with this Golden Go. That is going to be fainted, and I mean, this Drifloon, the Flare Blitz is going to be doing a lot of damage into it. That is such an impactful turn. The burn as well, just for a little bit of consistent chip.
Oh, the bulk on Luca's team is so clutch. Like in the first game, Roaring Moon was able to take that +2 Dragon Claw with about 10% of its HP. In this game, both Pokemon survive. And so, yeah, I think it makes sense to go for Acrobatics, Make It Rain there, right? If you're expecting the double knockout. If you get that double knockout, you're so well positioned to win this game. But with both Pokemon surviving, things are, of course, more challenging. Now, there is still Tailwind, right? You still have Acrobatics pressure, but I think what makes this turn a little bit awkward is it's fairly safe to just go for a Rage Powder, for example, and just go for free damage here. And so, yeah, we're actually seeing the Terra here, right? And I think it's really safe to go for Rage Powder because Garchomp doesn't have like a Rock Slide, for example. You want to make sure you don't get hit by Acrobatics onto the Roaring Moon slot. So if you're on Ian's end, you could consider just going for an Acrobatics plus a Dragon Claw or an Earthquake. But you could even consider something like Hypnosis Swords Dance, which I think would be interesting.
You're loving that idea of that Hypnosis.
I know, Ian's not going for it because it's risky, right? It missed in the first game, and so it's so high variance, right? It's 60% accuracy. It is basically a virtual coin flip, very slightly in your favor. So you can understand the hesitancy to not go for it, but there's that Rage Powder.
Yeah, the Terrestrialization followed with the Rage Powder to make sure that this Rain Moon is good. Does go for the Hypnosis, but like you said, it is going to be that coin flip and not going well. The Swords Dance at this point, I mean, the Garchomp with the +2 attack, that could be so much pressure going on forward, but now Throat Chop is going to take care of the Drifloon.
Yeah, and I think that miss is going to make it so difficult to win now. It still kind of comes down to, like, because we know that Luca actually has the Iron Hands in the back. Like, Iron Hands Amoonguss doesn't necessarily beat the Garchomp very easily. So, yeah, you can go for Protect +4 this turn. And if you're on Ian's end, you could consider, like, protecting. Or you could just maybe try to go for, like, a critical hit onto the Amoonguss. Or maybe a +2 Dragon Claw or Earthquake just gets the KO. But here's the Earthquake.
Yeah, Earthquake, we've gotten to see just how much damage it does. Amoonguss, though, can be pretty bulky, and it's not going to be nearly enough. And of course, with the help of the Citrus Berry, is going to be able to heal up to just over half health at this point. And the Spore back, I mean, Garchomp, you can do all the damage in the world, but it's not going to help if you're taking a snooze.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that, Tailwind is stalled out perfectly as well. Super safe to just click that, Dragon Dance into Pollen Puff here. So, like, the main thing here is you actually want to respect the actually, I was going to say you want to respect Rough Skin, but Ian's Garchomp actually has Sandveil, not Rough Skin. And so, yeah, actually, I think 2 Acrobatics there would be safe. But I was thinking, yeah, you want to go for the Dragon Dance, make sure you don't faint to the own Rough Skin. But, the play that Luca went for essentially covered for that. But Luca Paz ends up ends up winning in a, really exhilarating 2-1 set. I think the Amoonguss adjustment here was really nice, and it basically forced Ian to play defensively on the first turn. And obviously what was really, really huge in this game was the double survival with the